First of all, we'll write down color. I'm just gonna, you can insert like RGB colors or you can insert like regular colors. Really, it depends on you. So, for example, like you could do new color. And if you want to get some cool ideas for what kind of colors you want, you can always go into the Coolers website, which I think I have mentioned this website before. And if you go in there, you'll find if you click on start the generator, you're going to be seeing like different type of color options and you can really select the one you want. I also just want to go back to the stuff of in terms of the Imigongo. You're going to start seeing some of these lines for the pattern design. So like in CY, this one is basically finding the vertical center. So remember we found the horizontal center. So this one's finding the vertical center because every diamond ring is drawn outward from this point in all four directions equally, which is what makes the design perfectly symmetrical. So each line explains what's going on. And then you've got like the ring sizes, which I think I just want to go over real quick before we go back. The ring sizes, obviously, the rings for the Imogongo pattern I'm doing are these diamond rings that you see. And so their sizes are different. We have the inner ring size, 6 pixels, the outer ring size, which becomes bigger, 14 pixels. And then we've got so they increase by 8 pixels gap, right? You already see it there. So that's the ring sizes. And you're going to notice in that line of code that we're going to put in, it basically, this line signifies what the ring sizes are. That's what it's doing. Then, of course, we come into the colors line, which is where we are right now, and we're trying to create these list of colors. And so this is what we call the seed in coloring. And so the current hash, which is the password hash, and it's a long like hexadecimal sort of code, right? Or like string. And so it converts each string into a single integer, which we saw with using that math.absolute method, and makes the number, make sure that the number is positive. Like I told you, that's what absolute does even in math, so that it can be used as an array index because every single color, and you can see how it sort of reflects the color on the outer box of the Imogongo, has an array index. So like white color starts, the computer starts to count at 0. That's what we call by index. We as humans in the decimal system, like the ordinary system of numbers, we start to count from 1. So the computer starts at 0 and then 1 and then 2 and then 3 and it goes in that direction, right? So we have 4 colors that we're using inspired by the Rwandan national flag to make this traditional Imogongo art, which is what's happening, and we're storing them in like arrays. And so that's like we're making the primary, this is just trying to make, if you want the colors to go like that, is what it's saying. You could do like white, sky blue, yellow, and as you store these colors in this array, what is usually doing along with this line is that it's just picking the colors based on the outer colors based on what's inside of this array. This is an array, by the way, or like a list. In this case, I would say array. So it's storing these colors in those positions and it's picking them so that it goes with the hash password so that it reflects on that Imogongo cybersecurity badge. Now, as we move on to the other part where we did the set colors and we see color seed, percentage colors dot length, what this is doing, that this is called the modulus symbol, and it basically means you're dividing and returning a remainder. So whatever the seed is, and if you remember, the seed is just this one here that we're trying to, I don't know if I spoke about this, but the line that basically tries to choose a color from the password, right? So depending on what the password is, it will choose a color based on the index position. And these are like the primary colors. And it's taking from inspiration from the Rwandan national flag. So that seed that we're getting, we're going to divide the number that we get, which is the whole number, from the password that we're generating. We're going to assign a 0, 1, 2, or 3, depending on what it is. And remember that those represents the colors that would appear on the Imogongo pattern. So it represents that. And so the whole number is divided by 4, leaving a remainder of 0, 1, 2, or 3, which is matching the index positions of the colors. And so no matter how large the seed is, like no matter how large the array, like not the array, the hash password is, it will always pick from one of those 4 colors that we set in that list of colors right here. And that's what we're doing by doing this, setting the color according to that color list from the index. So if the seed, for example, the number that has been generated in accordance with the hash password is 7, for example, they're showing you 7 modulus 4, 7 divided by 4 will return a remainder of 3. And so what is the color that represents in 3? That's going to be green, right? So that's green, that would be the one that would reflect on the Imogongo pattern. And so it will always, that's why they say no matter how large the seed is, it would always return this remainder of 0, 1, 2, or 3, or 4, picking one of the 4 colors and then setting the color to draw the color of for all the polygons, which is like where you see there. So that's why we have like the sky blue polygon, and then we've got like the yellow polygon, and we've got like the green polygon, and then we're talking about the rings, and we've got like the white one. So like those colors, and I just want to point out to you, and so those colors, we've got the white, we've got the sky blue, and then we've got the white, sky blue, and then we've got the yellow and green. So you can really change it. I would prefer to stick to that, getting inspiration from the Rwandan flag. But like I said again, you can come and change your colors to whatever you want, really. On this website, you can just choose, click on the color you like, and then select the picker and go for the RGB, which is the red, green, and blue, and just pick these numbers 19215525216. I'm going to show you how that's going to be done, but I'm just explaining to you how I originally set this Imigongo to sort of take inspiration from the Rwandan flag. Now, moving on to the last parts before we go continue coding, this is more of like positioning the ring vertices, like points on these rings, which actually make them to form into these diamond rings. And so if you look here, now we're going into this one that you're going to see in the code that we're going to type int x points, and this is an array that contains cx, cx plus r, and then cx, cx minus r. And then we've got int y points, the same thing again, cy minus r, cy, cy plus r, and cy. So what do these lines do? So a diamond has 4 corner points. Every diamond shape has 4 corner points. And so the top point, which you can see here, then we've got the right point, which we can see here, and then we've got the bottom point, which we can see here, and then we've got the left point, which we can see here. So these 2 lines calculate where each corner sits on the tile of a ring of a radius, and each corner is exactly r pixels away from the center in one direction. So these calculations that you see crx minus r, and then cy, for example, because it's the y coordinate on this edge, okay, we're looking at the y coordinates, and you've got it here as well because these are the y coordinates. So the left is on, obviously, you know, the x comes on the left. What I'm just trying to tell you, just imagine, okay, this is left, this is right. Let's go x is left, x is right, right? Sorry about that. So the x is here, and then the x, we go minus r because we're going to the left from the right side. So minus the right r, and then we're going cx plus r because it's the, you know, the points where we're trying to basically, what this whole thing is doing is just marking these 4 points for each of these rings so that we can be able to draw the rings, like the points that make the drawing of mark the vertice ends that basically will draw these rings. And that's really what's happening. So I think it's pretty clear from the table right here, as you can see. And then finally, drawing the polygon. So the polygon, basically what it does is that it's now connecting the, since you've marked the points, obviously for drawing these rings, then it's just going to connect the points top, right, bottom, and left within the straight lines in that order, then automatically closes the shape and goes back to the top, producing one more complete diamond. So it just does this and sort of like draws that, then closes, goes to the next one, and sort of like the next one, and so on. So just automatically it shows you step 1 right here, and then step 2, and then step 3, and then its final result is that all 3 rings together, so like it shows the whole thing all at once and really draws the final outcome. And then here's a quick reference to everything we've talked about, the 4 colors that we've used as reference, and all the drawing of the edge points to draw these rings. And yeah, just a finished explanation. So this notes will be available for you, but remember, this is based on my Imogongo pattern. Of obviously, you can do your Imogongo pattern, and that's the one that I'm going to show at the end, just before we conclude this lesson. But for now, let's get back and finish our code. So going back into this code, you can do new color, and you can really choose what color you want. So for example, I might go 192.155.216, right? So I'll go 192, comma 155, comma 216. So I'm saying this is the color at my first index position. okay, that I can use to draw my Imigongo pattern. And then I'm gonna go again, when you wanna add another color, you just say new color. You need to add only 4 primary colors. So then you can choose your next 4. Um, or add as many as you want, really. It really depends on what you want. You just, if you're going to add many more than 4, then you just have to make sure that you change the line of code once you get here, modulus 4, because you don't have 4, so you're going to modulus the number of colors you have. So that's really what you will do. So in my case, I'm just gonna go with 4 colors because that's sort of what I want to go with for now. But you can, like I said, add more. And then you could do like, okay, maybe I go with a little bit bright. So I go with like deep navy, maybe that. And the color is 01866, 01866. So 0, comma 18, comma 66. And then of course I put another new color, and then I add again. So really you can choose what kind of patterns you want. So let's say I go for green yellow. It's 194249112, 194249249, and 112. And then I go for the last one, which is going to be my final color block. And let's do that real quick. And so that one's going to be, let's say, strawberry red. So it's 2297575. So just put that in 22975 and 75. And that's it pretty much. So once you're done with that, just make sure you close the curly brace and hit enter to go to the next line. Remember, you should be inside of this method that's called the protected paint component, and then you move on to the next block of code. So after that, we've already explained what these lines are doing, so please go check it out on the notes that would be attached to this lesson. We're going to just put in the seed color, so I'm just going to go one by one. We've already talked about this, which sets the color of drawing for the Imigongo pattern, and then we go for the set stroke, which basically would show like how thick we want to make the outline. So we have a set stroke right here, and it just like draws to like how thick basically we're using it. So we go for new basic stroke, okay, and then we'll go for 2 or 3. I'm gonna go for 3. And this line in simple terms, right? In simple terms, the line of code, just again, like I told you, the thickness of drawing it. So how thick do you want the outline to show? So the more you increase this number, the thicker the outline would show for the rings of the Imigongo pattern. And now we're going on to the code block. So in CX, and that's going to be get, oh, let's make some space. Get width. And that's going to be, of course, divided by 2. So get the width and /2. Let's give spacing before them. And then in CY, I just explained what these lines were doing. So please, again, check the notes, which we're basically drawing from the center outward to draw the rings. So the height and the weight, we're playing that role. So you can have a look-see. And then, of course, now we go into the ring sizes, which we talked about. We also talked about that. So yeah, go check the notes again. So the ring sizes, which we're going for 22, 14, and then we're going for 6, right? So again, I explained what this is doing. And then moving on, ring sizes, yeah, oh, my bad. This is supposed to be an array, guys. My mistake. Please take your time to type this in. This is an array, by the way. So yeah, put that symbol, which is square brackets. And then now we're gonna go through the ring sizes and just like put in all the stuff. And get height was also supposed to be a method, so please correct that as well. And now like we're gonna go into the for loop. So for, and then of course we're just gonna go through, use a variable. Let's call this variable R because we're gonna go through all the ring sizes to make the Imigongo patterns. And again, if you don't know what the ring sizes are, I can quickly just remind you. So if we go back to the ring sizes, here it is. It refers to like how the sizes are, like the small size, which is 6 pixels, then the gap between them 8 pixels, and then 22 pixels. That's what the ring sizes means for the patterns on the Imigongo design. So now we're going to go int x. We're going to create another array, so let me not forget that. And this is going to be for the x points, where we're going to draw the ones we saw, right? Where we draw like the cornered edges of each diamond ring, and then we just connect it. So this would be open curly brace, and you'd get 6x, and then you'd get 6x plus r. and then you'd get 6x and you get 6x minus r, right? So that was pretty much what we have. We'll do the y one, which is the similar thing, and then finally we'll draw the polygon, right? So, and 4 points because we've got like four edges in that ring boxes, if you're wondering why four, for the diamond rings. And that's pretty much it, guys. Really, that's really what happens. You can add comments in here and say this is drawing the 4 points, and then, comments with the AI. It really explains what's going on. This line creates your Imigongo design with the 4 points, and the same thing goes for this. The same, like both of them are creating your Imigongo design. So this one too does the same thing as the one. Just this one's for the X side, this one's for the Y. So X meaning left to right, and then Y is the top to bottom, those four dot edges. Now we've got to test this out. Of course, to do that, we've got to go back to like make space for where we want to show the Imogongo. And what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the very beginning, guys, like where we actually had to put in our code blocks, if you remember. When we had the one that was the done button, right? For the done button, we are supposed to have that password duplicate, and we're supposed to have a section where we actually put in we make space so we can be able to put in the Imogongo design or the pattern that we need. So we're just gonna go do that right now and work on that, and then probably test this out. So let's go back into this method. I'm going to show you. We need to go back into the start app method, and let's go into the done, because the done button is the one once they click done, then it will check to see if there's a duplicate password in the database. And if there is a duplicate password, then it will obviously not let them log in. But if there isn't, it will then let them log in. So after we called the validate password, we also did the hashing of the password, which we did last time. And now we also said once the password was hashed, we were going to do all the stuff. So we don't really need this stuff. You can comment this out for now. You can even take it out, to be honest, because we don't need these lines of codes. So let's just comment it out for now. And then come down here, and this is where we start with the if question, is password duplicate. This is like where we will call that method. And this is where you actually call your encrypted password, because it's the one that you're taking and you're encrypting and hashing the password. So if the password is duplicated, I just print out a pop-up message saying password already exists. I use J option pane. But one important thing as well, which we need to do, by the way, is we're going to create a part to show. So a section, right, on the sign up page to show the Imigongo pattern. And this section, how we're going to do it, we're going to hide it because the password is duplicated. So it should not show the Imigongo pattern because the password exists. So we can't show any cybersecurity batch, right? Until the password is actually authentic. So you're going to get an error on here because we need to create this hash panel. So how we create the hash panel is we're going to go right before we did the, like right at the top, where we, like anywhere, like you could do it here, you could do it just before, anywhere you could do it, really. Where do you want to put it? So I think I would probably do it maybe around here. Let's do it here. Like this, I hit enter from the done action listener part, and I went like to where we had the done button, and I probably want to do that here. And this is like where I will put in the, this is where I'm gonna put in the creates the hash panel for the, I'll go say for the Imigongo pattern, to show here on, to show on the sign up page. Yeah, so this is how we'll do it. So we've got it called, let's call this Imigongo hash panel, Imigongo hash panel. And then we call it hash panel. Obviously we're creating an object of the class. Remember, Java is all about that. And then now we gotta like say where we want it to be. So here we can actually change it later on and move it to where we want it to go. But for now, let's do hash panel, and that's gonna be dot set bounds And of course, that's going to be where do we want to position it? 710 and maybe like 428, like the X and the Y. That's what I'm saying. And then how big, because we did set the size of the square, remember, 55 pixels by 55 when we were doing the Imigongo, so like a square size. And then we have to set it visible to false in the beginning. It only goes true when the password is not duplicated. Then it's going to show. So in the beginning, it's going to be set to false. Okay. So it will be hidden, the Imigongo pattern, sorry, will be visible only when the user enters a password that only when the user enters a password that does not exist, right? Does not exist in the database. Okay, that's when we will show it. So that's when we will show this. Now, once we've done all that stuff, we come back into where we were talking about, which is like if this, if the password does exist, if is password duplicate, then we basically take the encrypted password, we hide the Imogongo, and then we say that well, this could be an error message, by the way, guys. I'm going to change. I want to show you guys how to do error messages. For those who don't know, there are different types of J option panes, like things you can do, like message pop-ups. There's the one for showing information. So this one is, we're going to say show the same thing, message dialog, but we wanted to show like an error. So this is like how you would see like a little E and X stuff. We're gonna say, where do we want this to be on frame? So like you have to say, where is this pop-up gonna go if you're gonna do this? And it's called frame. That's what our Java frame is. So that's the why I put frame. And then we're gonna say like, okay, what's the message? So the message will be like, this password already exists. Please enter a different password. And then afterwards, then you've got like like first of all, it's the more of the, sorry, not the message, more of like the title of the window first. So I'm just gonna say duplicate password detected. That will be a nice one to make it a simple like window, sort of like window title. And then the next thing would be now like the error message. So it'd be like, please enter a different password. And finally, here is where you specify what kind of pop-up message this is going to be. So this is where you would say it's an error pop-up message. J option pane dot, there's warning message too, right? There's different ones. So we're going to go for error message one because that would show error. If you want to go for like a warning, then that would be like a warning message. So this is a way how to do a different display. Now we've got an if. What about else? What about if the password is not duplicated? If it's not duplicated, then of course we're gonna print. You can also do a show info. You could do the same like thing, just a pop up. So J option pane again, option pane dot show, and you can say registration successful, or you can say um, password check passed, something like that. I prefer to say that. Password check passed. There are many fun things you could do. And then obviously after that, you can now come into your hash panel and update your password, because update hash, remember we created that method called update hash at the bottom. That would kind of like change the Imogongo pattern depending on what password it is. Then we would add that to, we also have to set the hash panel to visible. So we gotta set visible because we set it initially to false, right? So now it's true, it will show. And then finally, we're gonna add this to our panel. Although we can do this or we can repaint. Let's keep it this way for now. And then add it to your panel, which means on the main panel, the one that's showing your background picture for the sign up. Or we can repaint as well. Repainting meaning that we can just repaint. I prefer to do the repaint actually because that would like put the whole thing back again. So we can repaint. Both of them are okay, just that it will show the Imogongo because you're repainting it, like painting it again on the panel. And so that's pretty much it. This is like the main adjustments that you have to do up until here. Um, and of course, there is the other one where we would have to check to see if we have done the submit button, the login and the submit button. The submit button would be the one that would check. We still need to work on this. Now that they click submit or sign up, sorry, then it should send it to the database. So we do need a try catch for that one. But for now, in terms of this encrypted password stuff, I mean, in terms of like, sorry, not encrypted, generating, checking to see if the password is duplicated, and then generating the Imigongo pattern, it's pretty good so far. So we can actually test this out and see how everything works.